Hello and welcome into another episode of Rolling with My Special Friends. Today we've got two great guests with us in studio that we're going to be able to hear an amazing story. Miss Lily is a national champion basketball player as well as a swimmer. Broke several national records as far as time goes for children of her age within the swimming community. And she's also brought Mom along to help tell her story of her adoption and how she got to where she is today. So Miss Lily, how are you today?
Good.
Good. Well, it's good to have you here today.
Thanks.
And so you brought Mom along. Is that pretty fun to have her here?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Miss Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing just fine.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, well, you're quite welcome. So now, like I like to do in these things, I just want to jump straight into this kind of stuff. And I threw it out there that there was an adoption involved. How do you guys as parents come along to that? What made you think, we wanted to go out and adopt an amazing young lady like this?
Well, we were, it's been probably 10 years ago. Lily's 10. We started the process before she was born. We had a bio kid at that time. Annalie was 2, 3. And we decided we were going to grow our family, but we were done having kids and we wanted to reach out and adopt. And so we went back and forth on countries, and it's a long process to even decide, which direction to go with adoption. And we knew we were going to adopt from Haiti. We also knew we were going to adopt a normal child. Normal meaning we knew we lived a busy, fast-paced life. We just couldn't do. I can remember telling our social worker at the time, I just can't do a kid in a wheelchair. They make you fill out this sheet of papers of stuff you're willing to take and stuff you're not willing to take. It makes you feel like a horrible human being. And I can just remember looking back, thinking the Lord just shaking his head, saying, you have no idea the plans that I have for you. And so we started the process. It took about a year to get our paperwork ready and get it ready to send to Haiti. And I remember going through just faces of kids online at the time, and most of them were special needs because they advocate for those first. And I remember coming across Lily's face. Lily was about 6 months old at the time, and all they had was a picture of her little face. And I remember Annalie at the time was probably 4 or 5 now. She was sitting on the couch behind me, and I remember asking her, what if your sister was in a wheelchair? And her exact response was, well, we'll get her a purple wheelchair. We'll have puzzles on the floor. She had about 4 or 5 other things that she just spit off just immediately and didn't even check up. And some scripture came to me, if you don't humble yourself like a child, you'll never see the kingdom of heaven. And it wrecked me because I thought, here is my child willing to take on more than what we're willing to take on. And let me back up. I want to throw this in there too. I forgot to mention this, that when we started the adoption process, I knew it was something that was on my heart, but I also knew where Brad stood at the time. And I don't think he was fully where I was. And chime in if you want to add to this, but I can remember telling him, like, this is on my heart, and you're going to stand before the Lord to answer for our family. And where do you want to go with this? And so he finally said, okay, let's do it. Let's adopt, let's grow our family. And so we already had talked about what kind of child we wanted to bring into our family. We also didn't see it being a baby. We wanted it to be closer to Annalie's age, our daughter at the time. And so Lily was everything outside of what we said, hey, let's adopt. And so the Lord just began working on my heart. I started praying for Lily. I started praying for her family. I started praying for the family that would bring her home. I started praying that the Lord would prepare that family because we were not that family. And I was standing in a worship service one day and just praying. I was praying for Lily. I was pleading her case. And I remember the Lord telling me, she is your daughter. And I can remember saying, like, why are you just telling me this now? Like, I've been praying for her for weeks. And I remember him telling me, because this is the first time that you've stood still long enough to listen. And so I waited about 2 weeks before I gave it to Brad, because I knew where we stood. I knew what a decision this was going to be. And I remember printing off the picture of her little face, and I folded it up and I handed it to him on a date night one night. And I said, this is what the Lord is telling me. And he had all these questions that I had no answers to. And I remember telling him, like, I just know what the Lord's telling me. Now right. I'm giving it to you. Right. And it took, 6 months? It took him about 6 months of praying. And finally, one day, he came back and said, she's ours. Let's go get her. And then in that time, a lot of things happened between legal issues with Haiti in the United States. It is extremely hard to adopt from Haiti. Ask anybody that's in the process. That is one country that it's one of those you get stuck in. It's one of those that it takes years for kids to come home. And so I learned pretty on, you got to be pretty stubborn to have to go through a Haitian adoption. And thankfully, the Lord filled us with a lot of stubborn people in our family to be able to handle what was going to come our way. So that was year one. It took 7 years for Lily's process to be completely complete. She didn't come home until she was 3.5. So it took us 3.5 more years of fighting and being determined to get her home. Lily has a condition called arthrogryposis. And so from the waist down, her legs, can we talk about your legs? Is that okay? Her legs were disfigured and deformed. And so Brad and I watched as her medical situation declined year after year after year. And we just so happened to be at a craft show in October of that first year that we decided to adopt. And a lady came through and said, you know, my niece is adopting from the same country. And I thought, well, there's hundreds of orphanages down there. What are the odds that it would be the same one? It was the same one. And before the week was over, we had made contact. She had sent me an updated picture of her holding Lily. And she was actually going to take a mission trip that December. And I remember asking her, hey, you know, I've got some stuff that I want to send to the orphanage. Can you take it? And she said, well, I'm full, but you and your husband can go with us if you want to. And I was like, oh my goodness, this opportunity just dropped in our lap. And the crazy thing is our adoption agency was like, no, absolutely don't do it. You can't do this. And Brad and I, you know, he likes things in a list and neatly packaged together and needs answers, you know, on everything. And so he was a little hesitant. And of course, me, I'm the one, let's jump all in. Let's do this. We have a chance to meet our child and see where she comes from and have a little different approach than just the normal adoption. And so 2 months, we're on a plane headed to Haiti. And she was a year old at the time. And I firmly believe that the Lord gave us that as a gift, because had I not put my hands on her, had I not seen the conditions that she was in, had I not learned all that I learned in that time, I think it would have been real easy for us to say, you know what, this is just too hard. It's too expensive. It's too demanding. It's too draining. It's too emotionally draining on our family to continue through this. And so I can remember Brad, we were pulling in the orphanage one day and he looked at me and said, don't get any crazy ideas. We're not moving here. And I can remember telling him, don't worry about it. The next time I'm coming back here, I will bring her home, because it is a very hard place. It is a very hard place to live. It is a very hard place to visit. When I say third or fourth world country, it's really even hard to explain to somebody living in the U.S. the conditions that the normal Haitian lives in, much less a kid in an orphanage there. And so I had this determination. I was not coming back here. Like, this is it. I've done it. You know, I'm not coming back. Well, 3 months later, we were back. And we had our 6-year-old at the time with us. I think she was 6 the first trip, 5 or 6 the first trip. We took her. That was 3 months later. 3 months after that, we were back again.
Wow.
6 months after that, we were back again. And the Lord just birthed beautiful relationships through people. He birthed beautiful relationships through the orphanage. He allowed us to see the backstory of our kid. And I feel like that helped us even connect and learn where she was truly from than just a normal adoption of, hey, here's your kid. You're going to go pick her up. You're going to bring her home. Like, we had a lot of backstory that allowed us to dig into Lily's life a little bit better. And so we ended up taking 6 trips. We realized that was over a 3.5-year period. We realized the adoption was not moving. Nobody was advocating for Lily, the adoption agencies included. There was a lot that they did that even slowed her paperwork down. I haven't told that part of the story for a very long time. And now I'm at the point where I'm ready to share that side as well, because they slowed her progress down medically as well. And so we ended up fighting for a medical visa. Her first one was denied. We waited 6 months, I think, and resubmitted again. Thankfully, the second time, and that in itself is a huge story. The Lord fought for Lily. It felt like everything was against her, was against us. Like, she has a tremendous calling on her life for the devil to throw in as many roadblocks on her as he did. But we ended up going, we got her medical visa approved. We thought she would come home that trip. So that was our 6th trip. That was in June. At that time, the U.S. Embassy in Haiti, their computers were attacked. They were cyber attacked. So they couldn't print her passport. So Brad and I had to leave Lily there. We had to fly back a month later to bring her home. We had planned to fly in and fly back out. And that didn't happen quite peacefully as we thought. Some of her documents had expired. We had to go back and fight for a few documents that we didn't think we were going to get. Thankfully, the Lord came through again. We were able to come home with her. We made it home in July. We left on the 1st, didn't come home until the 2nd through crazy plane rides and immigration stuff. So that was in July of 2015. Mm-hmm. And then once we got her home, we could only have her home for 6 months. They only gave us a 6-month visa. So after that, we waited until right before the visa was up to start her treatment plan. Her treatment plan, the doctors told us, was probably going to last 2.5 years. And they did, almost to the day, 2.5 years. She went through some grueling things. I don't think you remember most of that, do you?
No.
She had fixators on both legs that Brad and I had to manually crank to straighten her legs every single day. One of her legs was cut and rotated around and plated back together. She had club feet surgery. So it is a miracle that she doesn't remember all of those surgeries. So after 6 months, we fought immigration again to renew her visa. They renewed it for another 6 months. 6 months was up. We were still going through surgeries. We fought it again. They renewed it again. So we did that for 2.5 years. Finally, after her being on the U.S. side for 2 years, we were able to adopt her here in the States. We finally found a family lawyer that would help us do that. We did that. So that happened in 2017. But in 2018, we got a letter from the government saying they were going to deport her that December if we didn't give them one document that they needed. So Brad and I dropped everything, flew to Haiti within 24 hours, was back at it, digging for the document that we needed. We stayed there for 5 days, fighting their child services. The agency and the orphanage did not do what they needed to do in order to provide the documents that we needed. And so that's what we were fighting. And finally, the last day, through some contacts that we had made here on stateside, we had a dear friend that got in touch with the U.S. Embassy there, shared our story. We were able to provide all the documents that we had. Brad likes to say we were there that 5th day and the gates opened and you see all these U.S. SUVs, black SUVs rolling up. And I remember him looking at me saying, "Oh, it is on now." And sure enough, our embassy showed up. They walked in there. They got the documents that they needed. And in 2019, Lily was granted citizenship. So from the time that she was brought home to the time that her whole, I guess, adoption journey was completed was 7.5 years.
Wow.
So she has now been a U.S. citizen for 2 years and is finally, for a long time, I remember the night after her being granted citizenship, like I think that's the first time that I actually went to bed and slept sound and felt like, okay, I'm not going to have to move to Haiti. I'm not going to have to send one kid back. I'm not going to have 2 kids living in 2 separate places. I'm not going to have to uproot our life to protect our child or to keep our child here. And it has felt like from that moment forward, I feel like healing has started taking place. Lily is emotionally growing, physically growing, spiritually growing. She is coming into who the Lord has created her to be. She is so full of joy, so full of life. She's charismatic. She's athletic. And it's crazy because like in Haiti, most kids with disabilities are seen as cursed. They're seen as the lesser of society. They don't let them outside of the walls. They keep them locked up. They don't think that they're capable of doing anything. And to see all of the things that she's been able to do, like, I have no doubt that one day she's going to go back and she's going to show Haitians like what she is truly capable of. And I feel like the Lord's got a super big plan for her life.
Well, that's pretty impressive on the story and the inspiration just to be able to get her here into this country and, to show other people how it can be done. It may be some big obstacles to jump to try to get yourself to there, but it can be done.
It can be done.
If you're willing to push that far.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Do you remember anything in that process? I know you were really young, so I'm just going to...
No, I didn't remember anything but getting up and going to the hospital. And I was in this wagon, but I didn't remember the surgeries.
Okay. So now Mom said you've been here for 2 years, is that right, as a citizen? So what's the 2 years been like?
It's been... good.
Been good? Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of changes from Haiti, especially with all your swimming and athletics and stuff that you're doing. You've probably met a lot of friends here.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of new people to kind of hang out with and be buddies. So tell us about, everybody's, that's listening kind of wants to know about some of this athletic stuff. Tell me about the swimming. How excited you get when you go to a swim meet?
It's really fun. Like when you race, it's just like, you get a lot of times, and then you get medals and all of that stuff, and it really feels good. Wow.
No, so now I know you got gold medals. So what took to qualify to get that? Like, is that a one race, 3 races? How do you get a gold medal?
Well, it's either you have to do I did 7 events to get 7 medals.
Okay.
So if you did 4 events, and you get 4 medals.
Okay.
If you did 3 events, you get 3 medals. And
how did you get that medal though? What did you have to do?
I had to race somebody to get the time and the medals.
Right. So you were first place in all of them. Wow. That's pretty neat. Now, do you want to do this as you grow up? You want to keep swimming? Yeah. That's what you feel passionate about? How about basketball? I know you were on a good basketball team. Do you think you want to keep playing basketball? Okay. And is there any other sports that you love to do? No. Nothing crazy out there then, huh? So just swimming and basketball. Okay. So tell me about school in America. Do you enjoy doing homeschool?
Yeah.
You feel like you're learning a lot? I know you got a good teacher, so that'd be a good start.
I was about to say, do you really you do like school?
A little, yeah. Sometimes.
It's probably fun to learn new things, right? So now, Mom, tell us about that. We brought that subject up, homeschool. I know there's a lot of families out there that do homeschool with special kids and with not special kids. What kind of time constraint is it on to a mama to do homeschool?
Well, we've always been a homeschooling family. I've always homeschooled my oldest. She's a gymnast, so she trains a lot of hours too. We're an athletic family. It just fits for our lifestyle. When Lily did come home, we did decide to send her to kindergarten, and I will say that it is a little bit different being in a wheelchair. There was a lot of barriers. There was a lot of differences that came along with that. There's a lot. Sometimes I feel like people lower the bar for Lily because she's in a wheelchair. I feel like they don't set high expectations, and that is not something that we do. She's extremely bright. She's extremely smart. She's very athletic. She's very capable, and we have always said we set high bars that just because you're in a wheelchair, that doesn't define you.
Right.
And so we realized pretty quick we were probably going to pull her back out, and just because for us. I like my kids. I like being with my kids. I like having the freedom to pick up and travel if we want to. And I like Lily having the freedom. I don't know if we can say this or not, but bathrooms are hard.
Right.
Bathrooms are hard with wheelchairs.
Right.
And so sometimes I feel like some of our biggest monumental moments have been made in a bathroom because there's just a different battle that goes on.
Right.
And the fact that she's at home and can use her own bathroom that's accessible, that matters to me.
Well, and that's the reason I brought those questions up, because that seems to be a thing across the country that most people don't realize until you've been in those shoes and been in that chair. When they build buildings, when they make sidewalks, when they do these things, they never. I always said if the person that built that building was in a chair, it'd be built totally different.
It's funny. I always say we're going to do a YouTube channel called No Limit Lily. That's our hashtag for her, and it's so frustrating because we do travel. Like I know families that have kids that are in chairs, and sometimes they just stay at home because it's easier. And I refuse to do that. I refuse. Right. I want her to learn how to live because the world's not going to adapt to her. Right. She's going to have to figure out how to adapt to it. Correct. And we travel quite a bit, and there has been so many times where I've videoed her going down a sidewalk because she's had to go to the very end of the building and then work her way all the way back just to find the ramp. Parking spaces. I mean, parking spaces drive me crazy. 100%. Bathrooms drive me crazy because there's plenty of them that they might say handicap. Just because you put a bar on the stall doesn't mean that her chair is going to fit in. She's going to be able to turn around. She's going to be able to transfer. And it is humiliating when you have to park your chair outside of a bathroom stall and go to the bathroom with the door left open because they're not big enough. Right. And so I am her biggest advocate with that. And even touching back on schools, PE. There's a lot of coaches out there that doesn't realize what adaptive sport truly means. And so, for example, if they just give her a ball to go in the corner while every other kid is having an education plan with PE wrapped around it for them, that's not an education plan for her, nor is it teaching the other kids how to bring in a kid that doesn't look like them. It's not inclusive. Right. And so for me, one thing that I've realized as a mom is I will take this fight of inclusive on for her, and we will do what we need to do to make it inclusive and figure out ways to make it more accessible and more adaptable.
Right. Well, and that's one of the biggest things I see out there. You brought up a lot of hot subjects out there. One of them is the parking. There's a ton of people that'll go park in a handicap spot that don't need it whatsoever.
Nope.
And if they could ever imagine that you guys showed up and were trying to go to a store and it's raining outside, you need that spot.
Look, I say that all the time, rain. And it's funny because even her joy, it seems like it rains at Costco every time we're there. And we've got a huge buggy and I've got her in the wheelchair. And I remember the last time it poured down rain and there were no handicap spots. So we're in the very back of the parking lot. And I told her, I said, we're just gonna have to go. We're just gonna have to run. And of course she's rolling through, arms wide open, mouth open, just embracing it. And here I am mad at the fact, that I'm having to park all the way down. But by the time she got to the car, she was soaking wet. Now she embraces it, but there's going to be a day where she has a job interview and she's in, full work clothes and it's going to be raining. And what good is that if you're soaking wet? There's everything goes through the mind. Even at the bank the other day, we were at the bank and no, we're not telling that story. No. But we were at the bank and all of the counters are chest height. And I'm sitting here thinking, how is she going to do a deposit and be able to look somebody eye level in the eyes? There needs to be an accessible bank teller. Right. It's everyday life that nobody thinks about.
Yep. No, there's no question. There's a lot of details out there, and she's going to learn them as she goes along. That, you got to be able to adapt. Sometimes just on the fly. Yeah. Because people can't change buildings in 5 minutes.
Nope, they can't. So now tell us, one of the things we love to do in our podcast as well is tell a funny story about her, something she's been through or you and Dad's been through.
Tell about the bank.
That's to be fun. I guess we're going to hear about the bank.
No, we're not going to hear about the bank. Oh. Well, she is funny. She comes up with one-liners. She loves hip hop music. She loves to dance. She makes crazy faces. But I will say, and I don't know if it's just being in a black-white family, because for those of you that are listening, Lily's a Haitian in a white family, and that in itself, we don't shy away from that. That in itself is sometimes a topic and things that we need to discuss. And I know it's hard for Lily being in a white family sometimes. And I don't know if that gives people just a lack of filter, I guess you could say, to say things to us in public or to say things to Lily in public. And the fact that she's in a wheelchair, I have learned some people have no filters these days. And I don't know if social media has helped that, but almost every time we're in public, somebody says something that is totally inappropriate or asks for her personal information or offers her money. I mean, it's yes, that was the bank. That was the bank story.
Dad said I should just take it.
Gosh. But see that's so we're in the grocery store the other day, and this sweet little old lady, you can see it on their faces when they're coming, and they're coming, and Lily looks at me and she goes, "Here we go again." And we died laughing. Like, both of us just died because we knew what was coming. But it's those situations that she's just super funny. She knows how to just adapt on the fly. I mean, can you think of any funny? She's just super fun to be around. She gives us a run for our money, but she's a fun kid. She's a super fun kid.
Well, and that's what life's all about, to enjoy every moment. And she seems like she's doing a great job at that, because she loves giving Mom a hard time, doesn't she? Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Now, so tell me, do you have any funny story you want to tell? I mean, tell us something that maybe happened in the chair. Have you ever fell out of your chair?
Yes.
Okay, well, tell me about it.
Okay, where we were going to my sister's gym meet, and there was my sister's friend, his brother. He was pushing me, and there's a really big hill, and then he stopped, and then I just fell out of my chair, and then he said, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that you didn't have a seatbelt." And I was like, "You think?"
Well, and that's part of the fun too, though, isn't it? You can just mess with people a little bit. Yeah. It's not a bad thing.
She adapts really well.
So now, since we covered the process, and obviously people have heard the story, they understand all the stuff you had to go through, some of the great things that she's bringing to America now with her great personality and meeting all these new people and winning awards. Back us up just a little bit, and if we're a family out there looking to do this, what are the resources that I'm going to look for? How do I even start the process to adopt in Haiti?
Yeah, most of the time you would start with an agency, and I would say thoroughly research agencies, because some of them are out there just to make money. Some of them are out there just to, not have the kids' interest at heart. So I would say research. Start with research first. Simple Google searches on adopting agencies. And with each country has different guidelines. I know when we had narrowed it down to Haiti and Costa Rica. Costa Rica, you had to live there for 6 weeks in order to... was it a Dominican? Oh, sorry. Brad's correcting me. I couldn't remember. Dominican. You had to live there for 6 weeks. And so we own our own business. I can remember us saying, God, we can't pick up and leave and go somewhere for 6 weeks. It's funny because on the backside, 6 weeks would have been a walk in the park compared to 3.5 years, 7, trips in Haiti. And then we ended up taking 5 more after she came home. We've still gone back. So each country has different specifications. So that's another thing that you can dig into is figuring out first, which direction you want to go. If you're doing domestic, if you're doing international, domestic looks a little bit different than international. And there's resources out there. And talk to people who have already walked the path. Most of us are pretty open. And just know that it's going to be hard. It's not going to be this, we're 8 years past, 7, 8, 9 years past. And so there were a lot of hard years. Our marriage went through some hard years. Our older kid went through some hard things. Lily went through some hard things. There were a lot of trying times that, you just felt sucker punched. It's not easy.
Right.
But if you can endure and you can move past, it is beautiful. I mean, the Lord works all things out, and it is beautiful.
All right, so obviously we went through the whole process with the adoption and understanding what it took and the processes of how to help families get to where you got her today and how they would do that. Once you get a child into the States, obviously we got a lot of families listening within the United States. What are some of the resources here? I know you guys are heavily involved with Lakeshore. I think you've also mentioned the Tim Tebow Foundation. Dad, could you tell us a little bit about that?
About Lakeshore? Or
Either one, yeah.
Well, Lakeshore's been a godsend to us. Lily feels at home at Lakeshore. There's kids, adults of all disabilities, but they don't look at it as disabilities. When she goes in there, she's like a normal, everyday kid. the people at Lakeshore, they love on us. That's how we got involved in basketball and the swim, but not just the athletic part of it. I guess I would say
Her character.
the character and life skills. Her coaches, they're almost like family to us. They cut her no slack. But I just encourage. There's people that we've met that have no idea about Lakeshore. I don't know how to be plugging that in right now, but if you're listening,
Lakeshore Foundation.
Lakeshore Foundation. We have one kid that actually plays on her basketball team that lives in Memphis, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And then we have another player on her basketball team that actually they drive from Fort Walton Beach, Florida, just to come play basketball.
Yeah.
So there's people all over that know about it that do come.
Right.
But there's so many out there that, well, I don't know if this is right for me. Go there, give it a try. It's changed our life.
Absolutely.
From there.
They have basketball. They have they have 4 basketball courts.
Mm-hmm.
They have a track. They have Olympic-sized swimming pools, therapy pools. They have weight rooms where you can lift weights. They
offer wheelchair tennis. They have a tennis courts.
They have archery. They have shooting. Rock
It's
climbing
almost
walls.
every Paralympic sport that you could think of.
Yeah.
Lakeshore encourages it.
Right. Yeah,
And
I've tried to
they
keep
do a
up
great
with a lot of
job.
those guys, and I've heard they do rugby and do well at that.
Well, and the main thing is too, you want to make sure that her body's staying fit.
Right.
You know, it's for her. There's not a lot of options sometimes at home. Like you can't say, well, go outside and play ball with the rest of the kids. Like there's barriers, and so you have to learn how to adapt and keep her active, keep her healthy, and not just sitting in front of a TV all day, and not just sitting still.
Well, and that's, to me, that Lakeshore kind of encompasses what I was going to ask you next, is trying to make her part of a normal society and to get her, like you've already stated, that you want her to grow up and be her own person and do her own thing. Lakeshore sounds like they're getting her there.
They are, and they do a lot of advocating. They have different areas that we don't even know about outside of sports where they advocate, and they go to Washington and they lobby and they make sure that they're staying on top of ADA laws. There's a lot more behind the scenes that people don't realize.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons that we do this podcast, is to, get special people's stories out there. The people are going to love to hear this story about how she got in the country. But I don't think it ever, especially with somebody like her, it never stops there, because she's going to, as she grows, going to inspire people the whole way up.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys out there advocating for her, you're opening doors she can't open by herself.
Yep.
But once that door is open, she strikes me as one of those girls that's just going to take over once she's in that room.
Yep.
She's a very inspiring person once you get to know her and be around her. So now, that being said, Dad, I'm going to ask you, what is the goals going forward into the future? What do you hope to see her doing in 5 years, 10 years?
Well, it'd be 15. I just want her to live a regular life, be educated, go to college, just live a life like all of us do, whether we're in a chair or whatnot.
Right.
I
just plan on her to one day move out.
We always say our kids are leaving our house when they turn 18. We are making individuals that will be able to be independent.
I mean, I think she's going to become something very powerful.
Right.
Jennifer here always says she might go back and be the president of Haiti. But, I just want her to see her fullest potential.
Right.
Not look at herself as, I can't do this, I can't do that. And I think someone at Lakeshore told us, and it might have been Coach Akil, one of her basketball coaches, is these kids don't have disabilities, they have abilities.
Right.
So that's, and we're hard on her. Just like Jennifer said, we don't cut her any slack. I mean, sometimes my heart hurts when I see her going down the gravel driveway in her wheelchair.
Right.
And I'm working on stuff like that. But
well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the specific reason that I asked Dad the question and not Mom about goals. Because Daddy, sometimes we want to, I'm one myself, and we want to be as hard on her as we would any other child, because you want them to strive and do better, and it hurts. Like you said, there's some things that you want to go do for her, but I want people to hear it on that podcast. Sometimes you just got to bite your tongue and let her do it, because she's got to fight through that gravel sometimes without Daddy.
And most of the time she does, and
Yeah.
she never complains about it. It's just when I see her doing it over and over and no complaints.
Right.
It just shows me how strong she is.
Right.
And, I was telling Jennifer the other day, I said, I got to get the asphalt guy out here and repave our driveway.
Right.
She doesn't complain about it, but
Right.
as I see the rest of us, and when her friends do come over, it takes her extra time to go down the ramp and get down to the swimming pool or where we all hang out and play.
Right.
And I've always told her there's times, we go camping. We do stuff that normal, everyday families do. There was a point where I had to upgrade and buy a bigger camper, but it was for her. She
Right.
never complained about it. But if there's stuff that you can do to make life better, then
Right.
I'm all for it, and I'm going to do it.
Right. Now, isn't that one of those things, though, to you as a dad, truly inspiring to see?
Oh, it is.
Doesn't it make some of those days you may have woke up and said, "Gosh, my foot hurts," and it don't even bother you anymore?
We do that all the time.
Yeah.
And you look at her, and she cut her leg the other day, blood pouring down her leg, and she's just, strong about it. Hadn't complained about it.
Right.
Put Band-Aids on, rip them off, put more Band-Aids on.
Right.
Where we would be, oh, my leg hurts, I need to rest.
That's right.
It's not with her.
There you go.
She's full throttle.
I've had to work on my compassion too, and what I mean by that is, can I tell about the shower when you fell in the shower?
Oh, yeah.
Can I? Is that okay?
Whole story there.
I'm like him. You see things sometimes where it pulls at your heart. And she was in the shower the other day, and I hear this commotion, and I'm like, what is going on? Well, I go in there, and her shower stool is flipped upside down. She's flat on top of it. She had tried to move her chair, and she didn't. And I could tell it hurt. I could tell it hurt her pride. I could tell it hurt her body. And my heart just sank. And I'm pretty hard on her too. And I don't cut her any slack sometimes, but that one broke me. I thought, ugh. And so we got her up, got her right side, and I could tell her pride was bruised, and I could tell them tears were wanting to come, and I think you let them fall after I walked out of the room. And I told him, I was like, that got me. That one right there got me. And I've had to work on my compassion with other people, because when I see how people complain about stupid stuff these days, and how, even the direction our society's going, and this me movement of I, and I know things like that happened to her, and she doesn't even bat an eye. She got up and she kept moving. That it has made me a little bit harder, I guess, towards society. So I've had to check myself, because I'm like, here's my kid fighting these battles every single day. And if they only knew how good they had it, if they only knew how blessed we are,
Yep.
even with everything that's going on with healthcare and women's rights and all these things right now, women in Haiti have none of those.
Right.
They have none of that. And so if nothing else, I feel like God has peeled back a little bit of the layers and let us see life outside of normal.
Right.
And I'm thankful for it, because I feel like we live a richer life because of it.
Well, that too, when I see you, and when you came and
Yeah.
you're teaching the kids how to fish, and when we go to these big events for her sports, and you see everyone in chairs, USA basketball champions in chairs, and encouraging them, it's inspiring to me to see the grown-ups that have gone through this, and they live a normal life.
Right.
Now, inside, my heart hurts, but, I want her to grow up to say, hey, this is me, this is what God's made, and
Right.
I'm going to live my life to the fullest according to his plan.
Right.
I saw one time when we were at the basketball championships last year, it was crazy, because this kid was in the middle of a game. He was sitting by the trash can. Kid runs over, and he was like, hey, I need this trash can for a minute. And so he didn't realize it at first. I told him, I was like, Brad, you got to move. He cathed. And so, he literally cathed real quick right there when nobody saw him, chunked in the trash can, got back out on the basketball court, and never missed a beat.
Yep.
And I was like, that right there is amazing. That right there, people don't realize, how good life can really be.
Right.
And it was amazing to me what these kids and these individuals are able to do with what God's given them.
Right. Well, and that's one of the main reasons for this podcast, because I love for people to be able to tell their story. I don't think there's enough broadcasts out there that are covering this young lady and all the young ladies and men like her at Lakeshore and telling their stories of where they come from. People need to hear what you said every day, because right now we are a society that social media is drowning out our brain, that we see every single day, like you alluded to earlier, this me generation.
Yeah.
That she goes on in social media and looks at some somebody that has this, and this, and they start feeling bad because they feel like they don't have what they have. If they really knew the true story behind those pictures, it wouldn't be as glamorous as they thought it would be.
Absolutely.
And the same thing is these children, that people don't realize what they go through every day just to make it to the swimming pool, much less winning the award in the swimming pool.
Absolutely. That's one thing. Watching her get out of bed in the morning is sometimes the hardest because she has no movement from the waist down.
Right.
And what that means is she has to peel back her covers. She has to drag her legs out of the bed. It's a hard thing to put on socks. And so when I go out there and I see her in a pool swimming a 50-meter race just a few seconds shy of a Paralympic time, like I know that morning she battled socks. And the fact that she can go out there and come out of that water with a gold medal is amazing to me.
Right.
It's amazing. And I'm so thankful, like I get a front row seat. I'm so thankful that, you know, as hard as it was that God positioned all of us to be able to say yes and to be obedient to something that it's not been easy, has it, Lily? It hadn't been easy. We've had some mountaintop moments and we've had some valley moments, but to see where we all are now and to see where God's brought us from, I mean, even our marriage went through a really, really rough patch. And I even saw God's hand in her process through our marriage.
Right.
Because it hasn't been easy. We don't want to paint this picture of we're all walking in field of daisies with this beautiful adoption picture. It's been ugly and it's been, you know, bad, but it's also been beautiful, and the Lord has done something really amazing in our family.
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt that everybody here that's watching us on YouTube with this thing can see the beautiful project that we've got over there that you guys were able to bring back to the United States. And you know, to give you guys some credit for sticking out everything that you did, and also you said like the Lord walking you through this. You don't know how many lives you've changed going forward by just the work that you've put in. So other families out there can not only look at it as work, but it also look at how the seed you're going to plant. You two guys have planted right here in the United States, have planted a seed that nobody else can plant. God put you here for that reason, to bring this seed here. And you were able to do that. So now that leads me to my signature series question that we use on every single podcast. If tomorrow everything was done and this beautiful little lady here wasn't with us anymore, and we got to read a book about the life of her, what would you hope they read in her book?
I would say inspiration to give other kids what's out there for them and not to ever give up.
There's some scripture that just came to me. For the joy of the Lord is our strength. And when I think of Lily, I think of joy. Like, she's just, like, I can remember some people asking, is she always this smiley? Is she always this bubbly? And for the most part, she is. Like, yes, we've had some hard moments where it's not. But for the most part, like, the Haitian spirit is so loud and joyful. Yes. And, like, even the hardships that they face, I remember every time that we were there, they would always break out in song. They would break out in dance. They had these big, beautiful white smiles. And that's so much of who Lily is. She's filled with joy. Joy bubbles out of her, regardless of her circumstance. I can only think maybe 2 or 3 times that she's ever really felt self-pity. And we don't stay there long, but she's just so full of joy that I feel like that's what our world is lacking, is like true joy. And of course that comes from the Lord. I feel like God's done a big, big work in her life. And so for me, it would be that her joy is contagious.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's pretty powerful in itself. Now, have you had fun today? Now, tell me, before we go and let everybody go, tell me about, Mom and Dad told us about Lakeshore, but tell me how your feelings are about Lakeshore. What do you think about the kids there?
They're really fun, and some of them are my friends, and, you know, like we play basketball or do swim or, you know, all that. Like when we're done with swim, we usually go out in there in the warm pool. Mm-hmm. And, like, do some fun stuff. And when we're playing basketball, we just play sharks and minnows, and it's really fun.
Well, good.
Friends.
How do you feel when you're there?
Happy. Free.
There you go.
Joyful.
So does that, I guess a nice way to say this, does that take the barriers off? Do you feel like you're not in a chair there?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think that people ought to learn about Lakeshore, and really families that are out there listening to our podcast to be able to take their children and go there, is it's a world where you get to sit back and there's no chair. You just got a bunch of people that you're friends with, right? How is, I'm going to ask you about your swim coach. How's Miss Emily?
Good.
Good. Is she a great coach? Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of great things, and a lot of people tell me the swimming program is doing wonderful out there. So now, would you tell somebody if they had a kid to go swimming, you'd want them to go swim with Miss Emily? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up with that. I want to thank you guys for coming on today, Dad. We had to drag you out and get you on camera, but we got you there.
Yeah, you did it.
Thank you, Miss Lily, for coming on. Is there anything before we go that you'd like to add that we have not touched on for these families listening?
Nope. Thanks for having us.
I did want to touch on it's the Tim Tebow Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go right ahead.
They've been amazing.
They've been amazing. Tim himself is a wonderful person. There was a time, I know she said back and forth with adoption agencies, and there was a time where we had been taken for a lot of money, and we needed a lump sum of money to help get Lily. And she was always back and forth with one of the ladies at the foundation. They were always checking on us, and they provided that for us to go get Lily. With that being said, even after all of it is done, they stay in contact with us. They've invited us to special events where Tim busts in the room, and it's like he knows her name, knows her story. It's just a wonderful foundation and a very loving and caring guy.
They still to this day text us and ask how she's doing and how they can pray for her. And that is probably the only foundation since, and we've worked with a lot coming through, that has continually checked on her. And I know adoption's expensive. There's a lot. They were one that helped us and gave us a grant. There's other foundations out there. Don't not adopt just because of the money and the barriers. There are ways around it. We fundraised. We had lots of people. Both Hands Foundation, that's another amazing one, that will help along the way.
Right. Well, that was one of my questions. I know we didn't touch on was the money side of things.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's money to get back and forth on those planes. Obviously, there's money for the adoption process itself.
Yep.
And then once you get here, there's a whole nother set of money and stuff like that. But there are ways, what you're saying, to reach out to different organizations.
There is. It's doable. It's very doable.
Very doable. And there'll be times where money shows up and you don't know where it came from, how it got there, but God will provide.
That's what I was about to say.
If
You
your
and I
heart
know
is
where it
in
came
it,
from.
it'll be taken care of.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you again, young lady, for coming on, and thank you too for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next time. Catch us on our next episode.